I try to avoid that, but I think it's unavoidable.
You know, I can't do this forever. I've been doing it since I was 21. As you move into your 80s, you say, hey, that's enough.
At 81, Robert Redford made an announcement that would haunt him just weeks later. After 6 decades as Hollywood's golden boy, he declared The Old Man and the Gun would be his final film. But 45 days later, standing at the movie's premiere, he shocked everyone with 4 simple words. That was a mistake. Today, we explore how one of cinema's greatest stars struggled with walking away from the spotlight, and the regret that's followed him ever since.
The name Robert Redford stands out. He's a legend.
Robert Redford tells Entertainment Weekly that his new movie, The Old Man and the Gun, will be his last.
Robert Redford was born on August 18, 1936, in Santa Monica, California. As a little boy, Robert already had a spark. At just 3 years old, he charmed everyone on a bus by bursting into song. That natural charisma would later captivate millions on the big screen. When he was a teenager, things started to go off track. At Van Nuys High School, Robert wasn't interested in studying. He spent more time getting into trouble than focusing on schoolwork. He and his friends would sneak into private pools or steal hubcaps from cars. Once, when he was just 15, he got caught stealing beer and ended up spending a night in jail. These wild antics were fun at the time, but also got him into plenty of trouble. Robert also tried different jobs to earn money, though most didn't last long. He worked as a janitor at a supermarket but got fired after he accidentally smashed a whole case of glass milk bottles. Later, while working at an oil refinery, he almost fell into a vat of boiling tar. One of his strangest jobs was resetting bowling pins at a bowling alley, back when it had to be done by hand. It was hard work, but it helped him stay in shape, something that would later become part of his appeal as an actor. At 18, Robert went on a road trip with friends to Tijuana, Mexico. Things quickly went wrong. He woke up in a Mexican jail with no memory of what had happened and no sign of his car. His dad had to bail him out, and to pay his father back, Robert had to sell his favorite record collection. This moment was a wake-up call. He realized he needed to change direction, but life had more challenges in store. Not long after, Robert's mother, Martha, died unexpectedly from a blood infection. She was only 40 years old. Her death hit him hard. She had always been his biggest supporter, encouraging his creative dreams when others wanted him to choose a stable career. Without her, Robert felt lost. He turned to alcohol, drinking heavily to cope with the pain. During this dark time, he nearly threw his future away. Robert had been attending the University of Colorado on a baseball scholarship, but his drinking caused problems. During an important game, he pitched terribly because of a hangover, and scouts who were watching lost interest in him. He eventually lost his scholarship and had to leave school. This was a tough blow, but it also pushed him to look for a new path. In 1956, Robert decided to take a big risk. With just $500 and a sketch pad, he left for Europe to explore art and find himself. He lived cheaply in Paris, sketching and soaking in the city's energy. One day, he met Pablo Picasso in a cafe, and the famous artist gave him advice. Don't just draw what you see, draw what you feel. These words stayed with Robert and shaped how he approached both art and acting. His journey took him to Florence, where he studied Renaissance art and spent hours sketching Michelangelo's David. The sculpture's beauty left him in awe and deepened his love for creativity. But not everything went smoothly. In Rome, he was arrested for sketching in the Sistine Chapel, which wasn't allowed. It was another brush with authority, but it didn't stop his passion. When Robert returned to the U.S. in 1957, he decided to try acting. He enrolled at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, where he quickly stood out. His natural talent and hard work earned him the school's top acting award. In 1959, he got his first small role in a Broadway play called Tall Story. It wasn't a big deal at the time, but it gave him a start. His real breakthrough came in 1963 when he landed the lead role in Barefoot in the Park, a comedy by Neil Simon. It almost didn't happen because the producers wanted a bigger star, but Simon believed in Redford. When the play opened, it became a huge hit, running for over 1,500 performances. Redford's performance was so good that people couldn't stop talking about him. Suddenly, he was no longer just another struggling actor. He was a star. At the same time, Redford started making movies. His first film was War Hunt in 1962. It was a small, low-budget war movie shot in just 15 days. Redford played a soldier who was tired of all the violence and chaos. He didn't even want to take the role at first because he thought the script was too violent, but he changed his mind after some scenes were softened. The movie didn't have a big budget or big stars, but critics loved it. It even won awards. This was the first time Hollywood started paying serious attention to Redford, though he wasn't ready to sign a long-term contract. He wanted to pick his roles carefully and stay in control of his career, even if that was risky. While he was building his movie career, Redford also appeared on television. From 1960 to 1964, he acted in over 20 TV shows. One of his most memorable appearances was in The Twilight Zone. In an episode called Nothing in the Dark, he played a mysterious young man who might be death himself. His performance was so powerful that it left a lasting impression on viewers. He also appeared in The Untouchables, playing very different roles in 2 episodes, one as a criminal and the other as an FBI agent. These TV roles gave him a chance to show how versatile he was as an actor, and they helped him gain more recognition in the industry. In 1967, Redford got to play the same role in the movie version of Barefoot in the Park. By now, he was gaining fame, but the studio still hesitated to cast him in the film. Redford starred alongside Jane Fonda, and their chemistry made the movie a hit. It earned over $19 million, a big success for that time. This movie proved that Redford could carry a film and established him as one of Hollywood's top leading men. But the role that made Redford a superstar came in 1969 with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He played the Sundance Kid, an outlaw with charm and a sharp wit. What's surprising is that Redford wasn't the first choice for the role. Big stars like Steve McQueen turned it down, and studio executives weren't sure about Redford. They thought he was too young and not famous enough. But Paul Newman, who was already cast as Butch Cassidy, believed in him and convinced the studio to take a chance. The movie was a mix of humor, action, and friendship, and audiences loved it. It became the highest-grossing film of the year and turned Redford into a household name. The success of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid didn't just make Redford famous, it also changed his life in other ways. With the money he earned, he bought a ski resort in Utah and renamed it Sundance after his character in the film. This place later became the home of the Sundance Film Festival, which Redford created to support independent filmmakers. After Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Redford quickly became one of Hollywood's biggest names. In the early 1970s, he starred in hits like Jeremiah Johnson and The Candidate. These movies showed how talented and versatile he was. By 1974, he was earning record-breaking salaries, including $500,000 for his role in The Great Gatsby. Around this time, he also starred in 2 of his most famous movies, The Way We Were and The Sting, both released just months apart. The Way We Were was a romantic drama about 2 very different people falling in love. Redford played a writer named Hubble, who falls for a passionate activist played by Barbra Streisand. The movie was a big success, and its theme song, sung by Streisand, became a #1 hit. Then came The Sting, where Redford reunited with Paul Newman and director George Roy Hill. The movie, about two con men pulling off a big scam, was funny, exciting, and wildly successful. It earned over $159 million, won 7 Oscars, and got Redford his first and only Oscar nomination for acting. By the mid-1970s, Redford was at the peak of his fame. From 1974 to 1976, he was named Hollywood's top box office star 3 years in a row. During this time, he starred in 3 Days of the Condor, a thrilling spy movie, and All the President's Men, which told the story of the Watergate scandal. All the President's Men wasn't just a hit. It was seen as an important movie about journalism and truth. Redford's movies during this period were not only entertaining, but also meaningful, proving he was more than just a handsome face. A big reason for Redford's success was his strong partnerships with directors like Sidney Pollack and George Roy Hill. Pollack worked with him on 7 films, including The Way We Were and Out of Africa. The latter won 7 Oscars and became one of the most loved romantic dramas ever. With Hill, Redford made classics like Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid and The Sting. These collaborations brought out the best in Redford, helping him create some of his most iconic roles. Even though Redford was nominated for an acting Oscar only once, he later won a directing Oscar for Ordinary People in 1980 and received a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2002. While many felt his acting deserved more awards, Redford never let that define him. He became known for choosing roles that were smart, challenging, and meaningful. His characters often had a quiet strength and moral integrity, reflecting his own personality. Even as one of Hollywood's biggest stars, he focused on stories that mattered. By the end of the 1970s, Redford wasn't just a star, he was a legend. His blend of good looks, intelligence, and depth made him stand out. Whether in thrillers, romances, or dramas, Redford always gave performances that audiences loved. At 44, Robert Redford made a surprising move. Known as a Hollywood star, he decided to direct a movie for the first time. On September 19, 1980, he released Ordinary People. This was nothing like the glamorous films he had acted in before. It was a quiet, emotional story about a family dealing with loss and mental health struggles. The movie was based on a novel by Judith Guest, and Redford believed deeply in the story, even though it wasn't the kind of film studios thought would make money. Making the movie wasn't easy. Paramount Pictures, the studio, didn't think it would sell. They called it uncommercial and were hesitant to back it. But Redford was determined. He managed to convince Barry Diller, the head of the studio, to give it a chance. The budget was small, just $6.2 million, but Redford made it work. He also made bold choices with casting. Mary Tyler Moore, famous for playing cheerful, happy roles, was picked to play the cold and distant mother. Redford noticed her looking sad one day on a beach and thought she could bring something new to the role. It was a big risk, but it paid off. Her performance stunned audiences and showed a completely different side of her. Just a few months later, the film's success shocked everyone. On March 31, 1981, Ordinary People won 4 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. Redford became one of the few people to win Best Director for their first movie. The win was even more memorable because the ceremony had been delayed by an attempt on President Ronald Reagan's life the day before. The film wasn't just critically acclaimed. It made $90 million at the box office, an incredible amount for such a small-budget movie. Redford had proven that a simple, emotional story could succeed in Hollywood. Redford didn't stop there. In 1992, he directed another hit, A River Runs Through It. The film starred a young Brad Pitt and was praised for its beautiful visuals. Even though the story was set in one part of Montana, Redford chose to film in a different location for practical reasons. Some people complained about this choice, but the breathtaking cinematography won over most critics. Redford's attention to detail was clear in every scene. For one shot, the crew used a clever trick, dipping a fishing reel in water and pulling the line, to make it look just right. The film won an Oscar for Best Cinematography and proved Redford's talent as a director. While directing became a passion, Redford didn't give up acting. In 1993, Robert Redford took on a surprising role in Indecent Proposal, a movie that stirred up a lot of conversations. He played John Gage, a billionaire who offers a couple, played by Demi Moore and Woody Harrelson, $1 million for a night with the wife. This idea alone was enough to grab everyone's attention. The movie made $266 million worldwide, even though not all critics liked it. Redford was known for playing good guys, so this role as a morally questionable character shocked many people. At 56 years old, he showed he wasn't afraid to challenge his image. What's interesting is that Redford didn't want to take the role at first. He only agreed after changes were made to the script, and he was offered a huge paycheck of $7 million. The movie became so popular, it started debates about love, money, and morals, even inspiring parodies. It also helped Hollywood bring back steamy thrillers for a short time. Despite the controversy, Redford's performance stood out because he made the character both charming and a little sympathetic. In 1998, Redford directed and starred in The Horse Whisperer, based on a best-selling book. This was the first time since Ordinary People in 1980 that he acted and directed in the same movie. It was a big project, costing $60 million, a lot for a drama at the time. Redford was very careful about getting things right. He filmed on real locations in Montana, searching for the perfect ranches for months. To prepare for his role as a horse trainer, he worked with Buck Brannaman, a real-life horse whisperer, learning how to communicate with horses in a gentle way. The movie introduced Scarlett Johansson, who was only 13, to the big screen. The Horse Whisperer earned $187 million worldwide and left a lasting mark on the horse world. It made natural horsemanship, kinder methods of training, more popular. Critics praised Redford for capturing the beauty and quietness of Montana while making the story emotional and thoughtful. The film also boosted tourism in Montana, as people wanted to experience the same ranch life shown in the movie. In 2002, Redford received an honorary Oscar for his contributions to film. It wasn't just about his acting and directing, it also recognized his efforts to support independent filmmakers through the Sundance Institute and Film Festival. Barbra Streisand, his co-star from The Way We Were, gave him the award, making it a nostalgic moment. During his speech, Redford talked about how important it is to support new artists and give them creative freedom. By this time, Redford had moved away from big Hollywood films to focus on smaller, meaningful projects. Movies like Quiz Show in 1994 and The Legend of Bagger Vance in 2000 didn't make a ton of money, but they were respected for their artistry. The award also came as the Sundance Film Festival celebrated its 20th anniversary. What started in 1981 had grown into the top showcase for independent films in the U.S., helping launch the careers of many filmmakers and actors. In 2013, at 77 years old, Redford took on one of his toughest roles in All Is Lost, a survival drama with no dialogue and just one actor, him. He played a sailor trying to survive after his boat is damaged at sea. The role was physically demanding, and Redford did many of his own stunts, spending hours in water tanks and enduring tough weather during filming. Critics called it one of Redford's best performances, and he earned a Golden Globe nomination. However, the Oscars didn't recognize the film, which upset many people. In 2014, Redford surprised everyone by appearing in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, his first superhero movie. At 77, he played Alexander Pierce, a high-ranking SHIELD official who turns out to be the villain. The film was a massive hit, making over $714 million worldwide. Critics loved how Redford's charisma made the villain believable and interesting. On August 6, 2018, Robert Redford surprised everyone in Hollywood. At 81 years old, he announced he was retiring from acting. He said The Old Man and the Gun would be his last movie. This news came out in an interview with Entertainment Weekly and marked the end of almost 60 years as one of the biggest stars in cinema. Fans and the film industry were shocked. No one saw it coming. The timing of the announcement added to the surprise. It was just weeks before the film's release on September 28, 2018. Some people thought it might have been a clever way to bring attention to the movie. But whether it was planned or not, the news spread everywhere, and everyone started talking about Redford's career and legacy. The news of his retirement brought an outpouring of love and admiration. Fellow actors, directors, and fans shared tributes, celebrating his incredible impact on the movie industry. Big names like Martin Scorsese, Meryl Streep, and Steven Spielberg all praised his talent, calling him an inspiration and a true legend. Just 45 days after announcing his retirement, Robert Redford surprised everyone. On September 20th, 2018, at the premiere of The Old Man and the Gun in New York, he admitted he regretted making his retirement public. In his own words, he said, "That was a mistake. I should never have said that." He explained that if he wanted to retire, he should have done it quietly. Talking about it, he said, "Brought the wrong kind of attention." Instead of focusing on the movie, everyone focused on his career ending. This upset Redford because he has always cared deeply about the people he works with and wanted the film to get the attention it deserved. While promoting the movie, Redford started to rethink his decision. He realized he wasn't sure if he was ready to stop acting completely. At 82, he thought maybe he'd just slow down instead of quitting. When people asked if this really was his last film, he gave a different answer. Instead of saying yes, he smiled and said, "I'm not answering that. Keep the mystery alive." This playful response left fans guessing. Would he come back for one more role? Or was this truly his farewell? No one knew for sure, and that made the movie feel even more special. Meanwhile, Redford's personal life is full of love, loss, and perseverance. When he was just 20 years old, in 1957, he met a girl named Lola Van Wagenen in Los Angeles. She was 17, and they quickly fell in love. They didn't wait long to make it official. Just a year later, on August 9, 1958, they ran off to Utah and got married. It was a young, passionate start to what would become a 27-year-long marriage. But their happiness didn't last for long. In 1959, they had their first child, a baby boy named Scott Anthony. It should have been a joyful time, but tragedy struck just 2.5 months later. Their little boy died suddenly from a condition called SIDS, or Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. Robert was only 21 years old, and this loss hit him and Lola deeply. They were heartbroken, and it left a scar on their marriage that would never fully heal. Even though this was a crushing blow, they didn't give up. Over the years, they built their family back up. they had 3 more children: Shauna in 1960, James in 1962, and Amy in 1970. Raising kids while Robert's career was taking off wasn't easy. By the late 1960s, he was one of Hollywood's biggest stars, acting in hits like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. With his fame growing, their private life became harder to protect. To give his family some peace, Robert bought land in Utah in 1969. This place became their escape from Hollywood. They called it the Sundance Mountain Resort. It wasn't just a home. It was where Robert connected with nature and taught his kids to love it too. But even with this safe haven, their marriage began to crack. The early tragedy they faced, combined with the pressure of Robert's fame, took its toll. By 1985, after 27 years together, Robert and Lola separated. Their divorce was finalized the same year. For a long time after that, Robert stayed single. He focused on his work and the things he cared about, like protecting the environment. Then, in the mid-1990s, he met Sibylle Sagers, a painter from Germany. She shared his love for nature and creativity. They took their time getting to know each other, living together for years before deciding to marry. In 2009, when Robert was 72 years old, they had a small wedding in Hamburg, Germany. It was a quiet, meaningful ceremony that reflected their shared values. Robert has always been close to his family, and being a father and grandfather means a lot to him. He has 7 grandchildren and loves being part of their lives. But tragedy struck again in October 2020. His son James, who had followed in his father's footsteps as a filmmaker, passed away from liver cancer at the age of 58. It was another heartbreaking loss, but Robert has always found a way to keep going, no matter how hard life gets. Through all the highs and lows, Robert's life has been about staying true to what matters most: his family, his love for nature, and his desire to make the world a better place. Robert Redford changed the world of independent cinema when he founded the Sundance Institute on June 15, 1981. At the peak of his acting career, when he was earning $5 million per film, he took $19 million of his own money to create a place where filmmakers could focus on creativity without the pressure of Hollywood's commercial demands. He built this institute in the peaceful mountains of Utah, a bold move during a time when Hollywood dominated filmmaking. In its first year, Redford personally selected 10 filmmakers from thousands of applicants for a filmmaker's lab. Among them was Quentin Tarantino, who later credited Sundance for saving his career. These filmmakers stayed at Redford's Sundance Resort, living in simple cabins and working long 18-hour days to improve their craft. Redford himself stayed up late, sometimes until 3 a.m., helping them develop their scripts. The Institute faced challenges in the beginning. Hollywood executives mocked it, calling it a hippie commune for failed actors. Some studios even tried to stop it from forming, worried it would create competition. But Redford was determined. He used his connections, called in favors from friends, and even mortgaged his home to keep the Institute alive during tough times. In 1985, Redford expanded his vision by taking over the struggling Utah U.S. Film Festival. He renamed it the Sundance Film Festival and transformed it completely. The first Sundance Festival screened 86 films for an audience of 13,000 people. By 2020, it had grown to showcase 218 films to over 120,000 attendees from 27 countries. The festival didn't just celebrate films, it had a massive economic impact, generating $182.5 million for Utah in 2019. More importantly, Sundance launched the careers of countless filmmakers. Films like Reservoir Dogs, The Blair Witch Project, and Get Out all premiered at Sundance, proving the festival's ability to spotlight groundbreaking talent. Yet, the selection process is extremely competitive. In 2020, only 1.4% of the 15,100 submitted films were chosen, making Sundance harder to get into than Harvard. While the festival gets most of the attention, the Sundance Institute works year-round to support filmmakers. Since its start, it has helped over 11,000 artists through programs like the Screenwriters Lab, where nearly half of the participants see their scripts turned into movies, a success rate far above the industry average. In 2015, the Sundance Ignite Fellowship began mentoring young filmmakers aged 18 to 25, focusing on those from underrepresented communities. By 2019, Sundance also launched an online platform called Sundance Co//ABE, offering film classes and networking opportunities to over 1 million users from 150 countries. This made high-quality film education more accessible than ever. The impact of Sundance on independent cinema has been enormous. Before Sundance, independent films were seen as niche or experimental. That changed in 1989 when Sex, Lies, and Videotape premiered at Sundance and earned $36.7 million on a $1.2 million budget. This showed that indie films could be both artistic and financially successful. Big studios took notice and started creating indie divisions to cash in on Sundance discoveries. Movies like Little Miss Sunshine, bought at Sundance for $10.5 million, went on to earn $100.5 million globally, proving how Sundance could turn small films into major successes. Sundance also supports new forms of storytelling. It has helped create hit TV shows like Transparent and The Handmaid's Tale, and launched a VR exhibition in 2018, showing its commitment to innovative technology. Redford's Institute also champions diversity. Programs like the Indigenous Program, started in 1994, have supported Native and Indigenous filmmakers, leading to works like Smoke Signals and Reservation Dogs. The Women at Sundance initiative has helped increase female representation, with 46% of films in the 2020 competition directed by women, a sharp contrast to Hollywood, where women direct only 4% of top-grossing films. At 87, Robert Redford remains committed to supporting new voices in film. Even though he stepped back from leading the festival in 2019, his influence continues. Sundance now gives $3 million each year in grants to emerging filmmakers, focusing on underrepresented groups. Many filmmakers who got their start at Sundance return to mentor the next generation, creating a cycle of support that ensures Redford's legacy will live on. Through Sundance, he has built an enduring system that has changed cinema forever.